On today's episode of What the Heck Did I Buy at the Swap Meet Now? Have a bad habit of accumulating more junk. But this is a vice we can live with. Because you can never really have too many vices. And this sucker right here, that's a good old piece of American-made iron. We'll give it the shoe for some reference. But this thing, this is a Reed model 207. There's the model number, 207. It's about 30 inches long, 7 across the jaws. Now it might have a little bit of old peeling paint and some rust, but underneath that I think it's a pretty solid piece of machinery. Doesn't have the stock handle anymore, I believe. Somebody repurposed an old bolt. Probably just have to let that slide. But basically, from a full stop, you've got maybe 3/4 of a turn before the threads kind of engage. So not a whole lot of slop, but I'm sure it's far from new. Now I know what you're thinking. Somebody like me probably wouldn't have bought this thing unless it was 20 bucks. Well, unfortunately, it wasn't quite 20 bucks. It was a little bit more than that. The market for old vices, tools, anvils, and stuff of the like, boy, has that just gotten really crazy in recent years. So I'd say I paid fair price for it. Pretty decent deal, but they definitely wasn't giving it away. I was actually cruising down one of the aisles in the morning at the swap meet, and I seen this thing just sitting there. No price on it. End up going over and talking to the dude. At first I wasn't even going to bother because I figured, well, something this size, they usually want many hundreds of dollars, if not towards $1,000 for something like this. But after talking to the dude for a little bit, he actually had a similar vise that he used in his own shop and had acquired this one and just had it as an extra. And he really wasn't asking too bad of a price. So after some negotiations and thinking about it for a little while, threw this thing in the cart and dragged it back to my truck. Sometimes you just see an item for sale and you're looking at it, debating whether you want to fork out the cash for it or not. But you just know that if you don't end up buying it, it's going to be one of those parts that you regret and you think about all the time. Ain't it funny how you seem to remember a lot of the deals that you just missed out on? Now back here in the heavy iron pile, I've actually got a smaller 4-inch Reed vise. Also came from Erie, Pennsylvania. Yeah, it's kind of cool to have the big brother to it now. Yeah, and thanks to the power of the internet, you can look up old documentation and sales brochures on these things. That's kind of cool and always helpful when you're trying to figure out what model you got and maybe when it was made. Now this vise, after I got it home, started doing some research on the 207 model, coming to find out it was supposed to have a swivel base on there. Now this thing was so massive, I just assumed that was a flat mount, rigid mount, and that was it. So that kind of sucks that it's not on there. Good luck ever trying to find a swivel base for it. So, pretty sure it's just going to be mounted as is like that for here on. My 4-inch Reed actually has the swivel base, but you can see it's actually partially broken. So, that thing may end up getting converted over to a rigid mount as well. So what's the plan for this thing? Don't even have a table large enough at the moment to support it. So that's going to be a future project. But for right now, probably not going to do a whole lot of cosmetics, but going to take the thing apart, check out the internals, the brass or bronze nut inside there most likely. We'll see, maybe it's cast. Just clean everything up, give it an inspection, put some fresh grease on all the ways and the threads. I like how you can see the progression of different paints that were put on there. Main things I was looking at when actually picking it up was conditions of the jaws, how much slop there was in the ways here, and how much slop was in the lead screw. I didn't see any major broken parts or obviously welded or brazed and repaired pieces, so that was good. I was actually surprised at how well the fit between the moving jaw and the body was still. And the fact that you could still see some of the original markings on the jaws there. So the quick fixes are going to be cleaning up the ways here a little bit, we'll throw some oil onto all the threads inside. Maybe clean a little bit of that old paint and see if we can figure out what the date and era this thing is. November 3rd, 1908, the patent. So I gotta do some looking, but I believe you can sort of get the era here. It'll be after that patent, of course, but that might narrow it down a little bit. Looks to be some markings on there that just were lost to time. Not sure what that would have been. And back there as well. So I thought I'd be able to pull the tightening screw the whole way out, but it appears that the threads must be peened over or something at the end there, because all of a sudden it got really hard trying to open up the jaws further than that. So that either means something's wrong internally, or that's just the factory stop to keep you from opening it up too wide. That non-machined end leads me to believe there probably should have been some more travel. About 8 inches of opening. Not sure if that's factory. If not, maybe someday we'll have to go in there and actually replace that Acme thread screw. So we hit all of the ways there with some oil. Oddly enough, this is some period correct oil. Well, at least from maybe the 1950s or 60s. It came with the vintage oil cans. Who knows how old that is. Hit the outer thrust portion there. Also got up inside the bushing there to give it some lube. And got about as much oil as you could up inside the screw there. That definitely helped free things up. Well, there's definitely some wear on there. I mean, maybe to be expected for being 100 years old. Really wish they weren't hammering away on that part of it though. Hard to tell, but I would assume that black is the original color. Had all the options, just like the Model T. I think that's about going to do it for now. My back's already sore enough from moving this thing around. It weighs probably almost 200 pounds. And the side effect of having this thing now is all the other Vises seemed grossly undersized. I mean, this is just a little guy now. You might have seen in some previous videos, this is an old 5-inch post vise that I fixed up many years ago. Came from the same swap meet actually, and it's been good so far. Haven't used it a whole lot, but it's put in the service when it needs to be. You just can't beat these old Vises like that. And while we're talking about old equipment, found this old funnel there. I actually kind of needed a larger funnel like this to keep as a spare for filling up sleds and stuff. And there was all those parts bin new part people that had whole stacks and boxes of brand new ones, plastic ones, assorted colors. I'm sure you know where those were made. And yeah, they might have been only $5. However, you end up finding something like this. Well, it might be a little bit heavier, but I think this will outlast those plastic ones by a little bit. Yeah, it might need cleaned up a little bit and have a little bit of wear and tear. But don't write it off just because it's a little bit dusty and rusty. Just got to build a new bench now. I'd say about the only reason you'd want to replace that is if a old 208 or a 209 happened to show up. Because bigger's always better, right?